Hello, members of the most illustrious fantasy football league. It is I, your commissioner and 3-time undisputed champion, Chase Callahan, coming to you live from HQ, the commissioner's office, ready to give you our week 2 power rankings. And we've had some shakeups, so let's get into it. All right, number 1 shouldn't be a shock to anybody. It's ZP, another 3-time champion in this league and co-champion from last season. Really, you look at across the league and running back ones are going down left and right. But who would have thought the one that's not going down is Christian McCaffrey? And let this be a lesson to everybody. Don't let Christian McCaffrey drop to 5 on your draft board because he should have been drafted top 3 in the league, maybe top 2. Josh Jacobs, a little bit of a shaky start to the season. Vegas overall, shaky start to the season. They have not looked good. Hopefully, as Jimmy G gets more reps in, the offense starts clicking. Josh Jacobs will look a little better. But just a shaky start to the season for Josh Jacobs. Keenan Allen looking like, Keenan Allen of 4 or 5 years ago this Sunday. What a game for him, proving to people he can still make it happen. A.J. Brown, on the other hand, not such a great game. Was really upset with his target share, was really upset with his utilization. So I would look for A.J. Brown probably to have a better week this coming week, week 3. He'll probably get targeted on purpose just to help make him feel better because receivers are divas. And then DK left with some soreness, so not really an injury, just some soreness. I'm not too worried about that. I think the biggest thing to say about Zach's team is outside of Jamal Williams, who's in the flex, and he's really not planning on Jamal Williams to be anything for his team. Outside of that, his team is healthy. And that's going to be such a big deal coming down the stretch here. As we're heading to midseason because everybody's licking their wounds right now with injuries already. But ZP is still really healthy. So I think that's going to pay dividends for him. And great week 2 for Zach. We'll see if he can continue in week 3. All right, in the 2 spot, also shouldn't be a shock to anybody. We've got the Victoria's Secret coming off a big win this week from yours truly, taking down the commissioner. And we'll jump into why. TJ Hawkinson, monster week for him. 2 receiving touchdowns. What a week. Justin Jefferson also had a good week, even though he had a lost fumble. He hasn't really been catching touchdowns yet, but once he does, he's going to be popping off for 20-plus points because he's getting 15 points easy just off yards right now. Some issues at the running back position. Cam Akers being let go. Who the heck knows what's going on there? The Rams have been really tight-lipped. Cam Akers is acting like he doesn't know what's going on. Somebody knows what's going on. My guess is Cam Akers did something, and that's just my guess. But in a very smart, astute move, Champ went and picked up Kareem Hunt, who the Browns just today signed to be a running back 1 or running back 2 for the team. So great find there, Champ. He didn't play Amari, but Amari was a game-time decision, so totally understand that. Champ really deserved to win this week, even though Cam Akers put up the goose egg. He escapes relatively healthy. ETN only had cramps, so he should be fine. Champ's team is looking pretty formidable. Great receiving core, and I think this is going to be a team to compete with for the coming weeks. So Russell Wilson putting up 26 points. Is he back? We shall see, but Champ at number 2, I think, is well deserving. All right, coming in at number 3, shooting up from number 7 last week, we've got Michael Joseph Carlin, the gentleman with a massive win over Tyler this week. And the Bengals showing some signs of life, losing to the Ravens, but putting up some offense finally. It sucks to see Kirk Cousins putting up 28.5 on your bench, but he's playing Philly, so I understand why you benched him. Tony Pollard and Breece Hall. Tony Pollard, 12.9 points. A modest showing for Tony. Could have used more, had a higher utilization. And the reason he didn't is because it was a blowout against the Jets. Same thing for CeeDee Lamb. CD put up like 14, 15, easily could have had more. It's just it was a blowout loss, and so they're not needing to push the ball down the field as much. I expect Tony and CD to have more points as the year goes on. Breece Hall with 0.9 points. He had a limited snap count because it was a blowout. He could have had more carries. They just didn't want to push it. Terry McLaurin, good game. Debo, great game. Who's going to be the wide receiver 1 in San Fran? We shall see. If Ayuk misses some time, that's going to be helpful for Mike. Pittman with 56 receiving yards. Not a great game, but he had a really good week 1, so not too big an issue. And then finally, the reemergence of Travis Kelce. such a big deal for Mike's team. If Kelsey can stay healthy, that might put him over the top. It was very important for Mike not to start 0-2 in a very tough division where everybody has a good team. Mike's starting lineup looks as good as anybody else's really in the division. The question's around his depth, but if these people stay healthy, he's not going to need any help. He's going to be in a really, really, really good spot. So well deserving of that 3 spot this week, and probably more good things to come from Michael as he progresses through this year. All right. At the 4 spot this week, falling from the number 1 spot, is the 3-time undisputed champion myself. Tough managerial week this week for the boss. You think you're good at fantasy football, and then you have weeks like this where you get totally humbled, where none of the choices you make worked out. But that's kind of how fantasy football goes. I could explain to anybody why I played who I played, the choices I made. Hindsight being 2020, they weren't the right choices. So here we are. Looking at the team, Josh Kelly, you got to get more than 3.39 rushing yards, 3.9 points whenever you're playing as the RB1 for the Chargers. That's just awful. Calvin Ridley, I needed more from him. I needed more from the whole team. Hayden Hurst had a really good week 1, and then comes back in week 2, doesn't get targeted until the 4th quarter. It's just tough. D-Hop's still learning the Tennessee offense, and he might be sitting on the bench for a little bit because George Pickens may have finally emerged as a real number 1 target in Pittsburgh. And if that's what I have to trade to lose this week, I'll absolutely take it. Now, why am I at the 4 spot instead of farther down? It's because of Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler. I was in this game and it was very close without those two. If one of those two plays, this is a totally different situation. And they're both going to be back, and at least, at the most 1 week, 2 weeks. And so I'm not upset. I'm not worried about the team. We got some depth here. Brian Robinson is the RB2 in the league right now, and so plugging him in is also going to fix a lot of issues. So the team's fine. Just a tough week managerially for the boss, who still has the number 1 scoring player in all of fantasy football, which is that hungry Dallas D, baby. Hungry. And it's playing against a very sus Arizona team next week. So I'm very excited to see what my top scorer, the Dallas Cowboys defense, does for the boss. Anyways, that's why I'm at the number 4 spot. Keep sending me your hate mail. And Luke, I can hear you crying somewhere in the corner. Don't worry, we'll get to your team. We just got to go down a little farther in the rankings first. All right, coming in at the 5 spot, we've got the proud owner and operator of Brennan's Buttholes, the OG himself, the Biz Brennan. And moving up 1 spot from 6th last week, this was a tough choice because I kept going back and forth between putting him at 4 and me at 5 and me at 4 and him at 5. And the reason I ultimately settled on this is because of the Saquon injury. Missing at least 3 games is a big deal for Brennan's team. He is first round pick, and health is a little bit of a concern here. It's starting to creep in. Saquon out. Amon-Ra left early with cramps, so hopefully that doesn't turn into anything big. And then Christian Watson's still out. Once Brennan gets Christian Watson back, his receiving core is going to be absolutely lights out. Mike Evans is playing out of his mind. He looks like a wide receiver 1 again, playing for a contract this year. Amon-Ra's doing his thing. And then you got Christian Watson or even Drake London, who finally had a good week this week. I think Brennan is in a fine spot. And once he gets Saquon back, he'll be golden. Ramondre also getting a touchdown this week against a tough Miami defense. Look for Brennan to continue to rise in the rankings. His team is really solid. And his division is a little squishier than my division. And so I think, he's going to keep battling for that second playoff spot in his division. The only question, once again, I have is the health side of things, because his team is starting to get a little wear and tear, and losing Saquon is kind of a big deal. So hopefully Saquon comes back quickly so that Brennan can keep winning and keep rising up in those power rankings. All right, coming in at the 6th spot, we've got Tyler, who lost a tough match this week against Mike. I thought we were on upset alert. I thought he was going to come back on Monday night, and then Nick Chubb lost his leg. So really sucks for Nick Chubb, obviously. For Tyler, it's a tough spot because you lose your first-round running back, and David Montgomery's also banged up. And so with Brendan, at the 5 spot, you say injuries and health is a question. With Tyler, it's not a question. The issue is here. Now, the good news for Tyler is Raheem the Dream, looking like an RB1 out there the first 2 weeks. So you take him, you put him up there, and you move, Gabe Davis to the flex or something and roll with it. He did pick up Ford from the Browns. At the same time, the Browns signed Kareem Hunt. So Ford's probably not going to be an RB1. He'll probably be running back by committee. but maybe you'll get some upside out of him. Maybe enough to play in the flex spot. Other than that, Diggs, low scoring game, but it was a blowout. And so he's going to have his games where he's up towards 20. Ayuk, I think he had some injury, maybe some cramps or a shoulder issue. Once again, health creeping in. Chris Olave, he'll have better games as well. I think depth might be an issue for Tyler's team. I think Mark Andrews, it's time to get him in the tight end spot because Kittle's looked bad through the first 2 weeks. And that's kind of why I have him at the 6th spot. I do have faith in Tyler. I think he's going to make the right moves to get his team back on track. It's just a tough division, and when injuries start happening, it makes it even worse. So good luck, Tyler. Pulling for you. I think you'll be fine. Hopefully you can get your team going on the right track. But that's why I have him in the 6th spot. All right, in the 7th spot this week, we've got Death by Bye Week. Bert, who had a good win against the Hilton Head Whalers this week. I say it was a good win because it wasn't like a squeak by win. He did put up some points, 103 points. So good for Bert. His team showed up for him. And I have him at 7 because I'm trying to give him some more bulletin board material because he's got a tough matchup this week against Mike. Mike's team is a formidable opponent, and I need Mike to lose because he's in my division. So Bert, I'm rooting for you. Now, taking a look at his team, Patty Mahomeboy putting up 21 points. You can count on that. Hopefully he's more towards 25 to 30 a week. That's really kind of what you're hoping for, but 21's nothing to scoff at. Take a look at Derrick Henry, 50.5. That's, what he does weekly. Now we get to Tyler Algier, and we get a little nervous because 4.8 points is not enough. And I'm worried about him losing out carries to Bijan. Jahmyr Gibbs, 5.8 or 5.6, also not enough. The hope for Bert right now, is that David Montgomery loses snaps to Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jahmyr Gibbs looks big enough to become more of a 3-down back and take snaps away from David Montgomery. That's really going to be key for Bert, which is also why I have him down at 7, because I don't expect DJ Moore to put up 10 a week. I don't expect Garrett Wilson to put up 14 a week. He broke free for a freak touchdown. I mean, he's super good, but Zach Wilson's throwing him the football. And so he needs Jahmyr Gibbs to step up, or it's going to be a tough season for him. Now, the other bright spot for Bert is Rachaad White with 16.3 points. Was not expecting that. And maybe he's somebody that can also come in. Let's say Jahmyr Gibbs does take away carries. You can throw him in for Tyler Algier, bring Rachaad White up to that flex spot. And all of a sudden, Bert's team's looking not as bad. And so maybe, as the weeks progress, he starts climbing up the rankings. I'd love to see that. As of right now, though, I just think there's still too many question marks around his team to move him up more, because I think the other teams stack better up against him. But he definitely could move up as the weeks go on. So I'm rooting for you, Bert. Good luck this week against Mike, and hope you get a win. All right, in the 8th spot this week, we got Mucho Mondos, who lost a tough matchup to ZP3, so drop him from 5 to 8. And the reason I have him at 8 is a few reasons, really. There's some question marks on the team. Jimmy G at quarterback is kind of just bleeding points at this point. Vegas looks awful on offense. I actually have in my notes that I wrote yesterday, that Brandon should probably look for a quarterback either on the waiver wire or trade or something. And it looks like he may have found that quarterback as he picked up Jordan Love off of waivers this morning. So, way to go, Brandon. You may have found a quarterback to get you an extra 10 points. An extra 10 points gets you back in this matchup. Now, other question marks. Running backs. It is tough to win games in this league when you got 3 running backs starting and they combine for less than 20 points. Joe Mixon didn't have a bad game, but out of an RB1, you need more than 9.5. And I think that as the weeks progress and the Bengals get better, Joe Mixon will start producing more as well. It's just he's not there yet. Tyreek, mediocre game by Tyreek standards. Devontae Smith still looks awesome, but watch out. I think A.J. Brown's going to steal some of these points coming up here because he's been a diva on the sidelines and he wants more targets. So watch out for that. Watch out. Other than that, like I said, Jahan Dotson, Kyle Pitts, Damian Pierce, just tough games. And Nico Collins, maybe a diamond in the rough for Brandon. I don't know what he saw, when he drafted him, because he was not on my radar at all. But more credit to Brandon for that pickup. Maybe somebody you plug into your flex spot. But that's why I got Brandon at 8. Just a lot of question marks. I do think he's making the right moves to get his team back on track. So he probably won't be in the 8 spot long. But let's go, Brandon. All right, in the 9 spot this week, we've got Leather Daddy. No shocker here. I was trying to decide how hot and heavy I wanted to give it to you on this ranking, but I'm nothing if I'm not a man of integrity and if I'm not objectively fair in this. So here we go. Losing a tough matchup this week against Brendan, you put up 102 points. You hope to win when you put up that kind of pointage in this league. But Brendan just had a good week, and that's kind of why you're a 9. Your team is better than a 9-place team, I think. You're going to win some games coming up here. And I think there's some teams that are ranked higher than you that you're going to beat and that you're better than it would be today. The problem is you're 0-2, and that's tough to climb out of. We take a look at the team. Trevor Lawrence, 9.24. Hate to see that. He throws in Geno, and he's right back in this game. But Trevor Lawrence had a tough game. Don't expect that to happen every week. You expect a shootout with KC, right? James Conner has a great game. Problem is it was against the Giants, so you can't really count on that production because the Giants are hot garbage. Now, Bijan had a great game, and I think the more I see Bijan, the more you can count on him having good games. He's going to steal some touches from Tyler Algier, which brings me to my earlier point about your team being better than a 9-point team, 9-place team, because I can definitely see a scenario where after Swift's monstrous game, Philly gives him the ball more. You take Swift, you put him up to RB2, you take Bijan, put him RB1, then all of a sudden, you got a formidable team with Jalen Waddle and Jamar Chase. Speaking of Jamar Chase, what is going on with Jamar Chase? 7.2 points combined over the first 2 weeks. Bengals got to get it together. I did fade Jamar Chase, but I still would have taken him at 7 if he was there. So he's way underperforming. I personally didn't think he was a top 3 player, but I would have taken him at like 5 or 6 if he was there. You just don't expect that. 7.2 points over 2 weeks is not good enough. Your receiving core is better than what it's showing up to be. You have depth with Tyler Lockett. You just need your players to start playing, and you got to start playing some worse teams too. What'd you play? Who'd you play week 1? Let's take a look. Brandon putting 110 against you, and then Brennan putting 129 against you. That's tough, man. Like I said, your team's better than a 9-place team. It's going to get better. It's just 0-2 is tough to climb out of, which is why I have you at 9. All right, in last place, we've got Tim. So Tim this week, tough loss against Burt. And the game for Tim right now is really, can I get a win before Cooper Kupp comes back? Because once Cooper Kupp comes back, the team will look different because he'll have his number 1 receiver, his round 1 pick. Just the question is, can he win a game before that? I'm not sure if he can, to be honest, because the team is just so injured. You got Kupp on the IR. You got Deontay Johnson now on the IR. You got Jacoby Myers going through concussion protocol. You got Jonathan Taylor on the PUP. You got Odell now with an ankle issue. I mean, the hits just keep coming for Tim, unfortunately. The good news is Devontae finally, I'm not going to say finally, it's week 2. He has a good game. He's going to keep having good games. He's good enough to outperform this Vegas offense. Lamar putting up some points. He's not on the injured list. But his running backs, Najee only putting up 4.3 against Cleveland. Not good. Alexander Madison not looking good against Philly. There's just not a lot for Tim to turn to until Kupp comes back, really. So that's why he's in the 10 spot. It's tough. I'm rooting for you, Tim. I'm hoping you dig out of this hole. I'm hoping Puka keeps being a bright spot for you because he looks like, Cooper Kupp 2.0 out there for the Rams right now. But pulling for you. Hope you get some wins before Kupp comes back. But that's it. USDA certified lean. And finally, a new segment for us, the USDA Certified America Game of the Week, coming from the 3-time champion, Zach Pelker. And he has decided that the game is a massive division rivalry against myself and Tyler. A lot of implications coming out of this, and it's only week 3. Make sure you thank our sponsors below for the America Game of the Week and have a great week. Good luck with your teams this week. Your commissioner, signing off.